It was a Tuesday, early spring, that kind of wet, gray day where the city smells like thawing pavement and old rain. I had just wrapped up a 3-day conference in Detroit, typical corporate fluff, nothing meaningful. The kind where people shake hands too tightly and pretend they're excited about synergy. The last keynote speaker had canceled, and I caught an earlier flight home. Honestly, I was looking forward to seeing Emily. I hadn't told her I was coming back that day. I figured I'd surprise her, walk in with takeout from her favorite Thai place and maybe a bottle of wine. Something light. Something to say, "Hey, I missed you." She'd been working late a lot lately. Said the firm was going through restructuring. More demands. More meetings. A new manager, Tyler something, was apparently pushing everyone harder. I'd asked a few times if everything was okay. She always smiled and said, "Just work stuff. Nothing to worry about." So I didn't. But maybe I should have. As I turned off the expressway into our neighborhood, I slowed near the old stone bridge just past Jefferson. That's when I saw her car, our silver Mazda, pulling out of an unfamiliar residential street near 5th and Armitage. I knew that wasn't the way to her office, and she wasn't supposed to be out yet. She'd told me that morning in a text she'd probably stay past 6. At first, I didn't register it. I figured maybe she had to run an errand for work. But then I noticed something strange. She wasn't alone. There was a man in the passenger seat. I couldn't see him clearly at first, just a flash of a navy blazer, sleeves rolled up. Then the car passed by me slowly enough that I got a full look. It was Tyler. I remembered his face from her company's holiday party 2 years ago. The younger guy in marketing who'd spent the whole night nursing a whiskey and flirting with every woman in the room. Tyler. I wouldn't have thought twice if that was all. But what stopped me cold, what made my heart stutter like a bad engine, was his hand. It was resting on her knee. Casual. Familiar. Like it belonged there. She didn't flinch. She didn't move away. She didn't even seem to notice. They passed me without seeing my car, and I let them go. I don't know why I didn't call out. Honk. Do something. Maybe part of me didn't want to know what was happening. Maybe I needed to be sure before I admitted the thing I didn't want to believe. So I followed. Not closely. I stayed a few cars back. Kept my distance. They turned onto 12th, away from downtown, and kept driving past the usual office buildings and shopping strips. No urgency. No tension. Just two people comfortable in silence. Could have pulled off. Gone home. Pretended I didn't see it. But instead I kept going. A part of me had already started rewriting every recent conversation in my head, looking for clues I'd missed. After 10 minutes, they pulled into a small lot next to a quiet park. Jefferson Green. It wasn't exactly a date spot. More of a tucked-away area near the river, mostly used by joggers and dog walkers. Not the kind of place anyone would be looking. They got out and I watched. Emily stepped out first, brushing her jacket down like she was nervous about wrinkles. Tyler followed, laughing at something she said. He moved easily around her, not like a colleague, but like someone who had permission. Someone who knew her pace, her mood, the way she tilted her head when she was amused. They didn't hold hands. Nothing dramatic. But they walked close, shoulders nearly brushing. She reached into her purse and handed him something. He grinned. Then they disappeared into the trees, toward one of the winding trails that wrapped around the lake. I stayed in the car, watching the rearview mirror, barely breathing. For 10 full minutes, I couldn't bring myself to move. I don't know what I was waiting for. Maybe a sign that I was wrong. Maybe for her to come back out alone, on the phone, frustrated about something mundane. But that didn't happen. I finally drove off when I realized my hands were starting to shake. When I got home, the house felt colder than usual. I set the food down on the counter and just stood there, staring at the framed photo of us on our wedding day. I remember that moment vividly. She'd been laughing because I accidentally stepped on her train. We were in Michigan by the lake. Her eyes had that squint she always got when she smiled too hard. I used to think that photo was proof of something unshakable. Now it felt like a relic. She came home 2 hours later. I was sitting in the living room, half watching a Cubs game I didn't care about. She walked in carrying a folder and her laptop bag like it was any other day. She looked surprised to see me. "Hey," she said, hanging up her coat. "You're home early." "Caught an earlier flight," I said. I didn't look away from the screen. "Why didn't you text?" "Wanted to surprise you." She smiled at that, walked over, kissed the top of my head. "You did." I nodded. She opened the fridge, poured herself a glass of water, and leaned against the counter. "You must be exhausted." "Little bit." She didn't mention the park, or Tyler, or the fact that she had clearly taken a detour hours before she was supposed to be home. I waited a few seconds before asking, "Busy day?" "Ugh, yeah," she said, rolling her eyes. "Last-minute client pivot. Tyler and I had to run over to the Southside branch to pick up a prototype binder. The intern forgot it." That name, Tyler. She said it without a pause. No stutter, no hesitation, just part of a professional day. "Prototype binder?" I asked. "Yeah." She nodded, sipping her water. "Honestly, it was a waste of time. But whatever, we grabbed it and stopped for a walk to clear our heads. Decompress. In a park. Near the office," she said, too quickly. "That little one by Jefferson." I looked at her. Not hard, just long enough for her to feel it. She held my gaze for a second, then glanced down at her glass. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Just tired." She walked past me to go upstairs, paused halfway, then turned around. "Hey," she added. "I'm really glad you're back." "Me too." I didn't say anything else. I sat there long after she went to bed. The game forgotten, the house too quiet. I kept seeing that hand, the way it rested on her knee like it had been there before, like it knew its place. And I kept thinking about the moment she looked me in the eye and told me I misunderstood. That was the moment I knew. She wasn't lying because she was afraid. She was lying because it was easy. That night I barely slept. I stared at the ceiling, tracing the lines of the fan blades like they might offer answers. Emily lay beside me, turned away, breathing steadily like nothing had changed. But everything had. The kind of shift that doesn't explode but settles deep in your bones. Like a fault line that finally moved, quiet, but irreversible. I kept seeing her car at that park. His hand on her knee, the easy way they moved together, played on a loop in my mind like some cruel highlight reel. I told myself it didn't mean anything conclusive. A hand doesn't equal an affair, right? People touch. Friends touch. But in my gut, where instinct lives and denial dies, I knew. Still, I didn't say anything the next morning. She brewed coffee like usual. I poured mine, added too much sugar. She made a joke about the Detroit airport's awful bagels, and I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I didn't know what else to do. That's how our marriage had been functioning for months. Habit wearing the costume of love. Once she left for work, I sat at the kitchen table and thought back. I replayed the little things, the quiet changes that had snuck up on me. None of them loud enough to set off alarms on their own. But together they painted a picture. One I had refused to see until now. It started in January. She suddenly wanted to jog in the mornings. Not on a treadmill, not around the block, full-on runs through the park. Emily hated running. I remember we once got into an argument because I suggested a hike on vacation, and she called it glorified uphill suffering. But then, out of nowhere, she was lacing up shoes she'd never worn, wearing matching workout sets, and stretching like she was training for a marathon. First, I thought it was a New Year's resolution. Then I noticed she always left her phone in the car when she ran. Claimed she didn't want the distraction. But one morning, I forgot my wallet in her car. She was in the shower. I went out to grab it, and there it was, her phone lighting up with a message. "You looked amazing today. Same time tomorrow?" The contact was just a first name. Tyler. I didn't snoop then. I told myself it was innocent. Maybe he was part of her running group. Maybe it wasn't even the same Tyler. Back then, I was still giving her the benefit of the doubt. But things kept adding up. She bought perfume. Not just any perfume, the kind that came in a glass bottle with gold trim and a designer name I couldn't pronounce. She wore it on days she went into the office, never at home. When I asked her about it, she brushed it off, said she got it from a coworker as part of a self-care gift exchange. Sounded made up. But again, I let it go. Around that same time, she started locking the bathroom door when she showered. That was new. We'd never been precious about privacy before. Suddenly, she was in there for 40 minutes with her phone, listening to music on low and coming out with that distracted look, like she'd been somewhere else entirely. Dinners disappeared too. She used to sit with me even if it was just frozen pizza and a beer. But lately, she claimed she wasn't hungry, said she'd already eaten or had a big lunch. I'd find her half an hour later, sitting in the dark with earbuds in, scrolling endlessly. I used to ask what she was watching. She'd always say the same thing, nothing. That word had started to mean too much. One night, I went to use her tablet, the old one we barely touched anymore. I needed to order something on Amazon. It was still synced to her cloud, her email, her messages. A banner flashed at the top. Tyler, missed you today. That one hit different. I tapped it open, heart pounding in my throat, but the thread had been deleted. Just that one message hanging in silence. I closed it and pretended I hadn't seen anything. That was 3 weeks before the park. I even remember the GPS incident. It was a random Thursday. Emily told me she'd be late, staying at the office for a late call with some West Coast client. Around 9:30 p.m. I got bored and decided to order dessert from this place we both liked, and I figured I'd surprise her and drop it off. But when I pulled up the car's GPS to check her last trip, something felt off. It showed her car parked outside a hotel, a spa resort in the suburbs, 20 miles from her office. At the time, I told myself the GPS had glitched. It didn't feel like a lie, felt like an error. My mind simply couldn't wrap itself around the possibility that she'd lie so boldly, so cleanly, so easily. But after the park, after I saw them together, that memory hit different. Now it looked like confirmation. She had been planting stories, a narrative. Long hours, tight deadlines, a new client, a stressful boss. The story was always just believable enough to hold. But now I saw what I'd ignored before. She was creating a cushion, excuses, alibis, something to fall back on if I ever started to ask the wrong questions. I hadn't, not until now. Later that week, I sat in bed while she scrolled through her phone beside me. I glanced over and caught her smiling, a soft, secret smile. Then, when she noticed I was watching, it vanished. She flipped her screen over and said, "Just a meme Karen sent me." Karen hadn't texted her in a month. I knew that because I had talked to Karen the week before. She'd asked if everything was okay between me and Em, said she felt like Emily had been distant lately. I lied and said we were just busy. Now I wondered if Karen had seen something I hadn't. I started watching more closely. Her behavior, her patterns. On Friday nights, she always claimed to be tired, but her energy spiked around 9 p.m. Her phone buzzed more, and her mood would lift. She was on it constantly, but if I came near, the screen would go black. She said it was work stress. But when I offered to take a weekend off with her, she said she needed space. That we'd been too cooped up lately. The truth is, she had already left the marriage. She just hadn't packed a bag. I don't know why it took the park to open my eyes. Maybe it's because it was the first time I saw it, not just suspected it. 1,000 small lies are easy to deny. But seeing her in real life, with him, in that moment of comfort, that was something I couldn't unsee. I kept thinking, what did I do wrong? I worked late, sure, but only to cover our expenses while she chased her dream of opening a design studio. I cleaned the gutters. I planned date nights. I was faithful, consistent, present, and yet somehow I still ended up in the role of the clueless husband. That night, I sat in the garage for an hour, staring at the shelves where she kept her art supplies, the ones I built for her from scratch. She hadn't touched them in weeks. She used to paint at night. Now she painted stories, and I finally stopped believing them. The following week was the longest of my life. Every morning felt like walking into a play where I already knew the ending, but the actors refused to break character. Emily smiled, kissed my cheek, brewed coffee, and went to work like clockwork. I started to notice every detail, how her "love you" at the door had become a habit instead of a feeling, how her hugs no longer lingered, how her phone was always in her hand but never unlocked around me. Each night, I tried to convince myself I was imagining things, that the scene at the park had been innocent, that Tyler's hand meant nothing. But that's the thing about doubt, it doesn't fade. It multiplies. It feeds on silence and routine until it becomes a living thing, whispering that you're right, that you're not crazy, that the truth is already in front of you. Then came her company's anniversary dinner. She mentioned it on a Thursday, casually, while scrolling through her emails. "Oh, there's this dinner thing tomorrow night," she said. "It's mandatory company anniversary, you know how those are. You'd be bored to death. I'll just go with the team." I remember how she didn't even look up from her screen when she said it, like she'd already rehearsed the line. "Who's going?" I asked, pretending to sound indifferent. She shrugged. "Everyone, I guess. Bosses, managers, a few clients." "Tyler." That got her attention. Pause half a second, but I caught it. "Yeah," she said. "He'll probably be there. He's in marketing, remember? These things are his jam." I just nodded, hiding the way my pulse jumped. "Right? Sounds fun." She smiled, relieved. "Don't wait up, okay? It'll probably run late." I told her I wouldn't, but I did. Friday night came, and she got dressed like it was something special. A black dress I hadn't seen before, just simple enough to look professional but fitted enough to turn heads. She spent extra time on her hair, her makeup, and that perfume, the one she never wore for me anymore. When she walked past, the scent lingered like an accusation. "You look nice," I said, leaning in the doorway. She smiled faintly. "Thanks. It's just work." I nodded, forcing a grin. "Of course." She left around 7. I waited 15 minutes before grabbing my keys. The banquet was at the Lakeshore Hotel downtown, a high-rise that looked like a glass cathedral. I parked across the street and walked in through the side entrance, keeping my head down. The ballroom was packed. Rows of white-clothed tables, a stage with a projector showing slides of company milestones, laughter echoing from every corner. I spotted her almost immediately. She was standing at the bar, holding a wine glass, laughing at something. Tyler was next to her, too close. His hand was on her waist, his head bent toward her ear. She didn't flinch. She didn't push him away. She tilted her head just enough for him to whisper something, and then she smiled. Not the polite, work-appropriate kind of smile. It was the kind she used to give me before our first kiss. I froze. My heart was hammering, but my body wouldn't move. All the little lies, the late nights, the "it's just work" excuses, they all aligned like stars into one cruel constellation. And now it wasn't just suspicion. It was proof, alive and breathing in front of me. I don't know what possessed me to do what I did next. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was exhaustion. But I walked straight to the bar, my pulse so loud it drowned the music. She didn't see me at first. Tyler did. His expression shifted. First surprise, then a faint smirk, like he knew exactly what I'd walked into. Emily turned around, her smile still bright until her eyes met mine. It dropped instantly. "Jason," she said, her voice thin. "What are you?" I didn't answer. I reached into my pocket, pulled off my wedding ring, and set it on the counter between their glasses. It made a soft metallic sound that somehow cut through all the noise in the room. Her eyes widened. "Wait, Jason, please." I didn't wait to hear the rest. I turned and walked out, leaving the music, the chatter, the lies behind me. Outside, the cold air hit me like a slap. I got in the car and just sat there, gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. My reflection in the window looked like a stranger. Jaw clenched, eyes red, some version of myself I didn't recognize. I wanted to scream, to cry, to ask her why, but I couldn't. The words were gone, replaced by this heavy, empty calm. When I finally drove home, it was nearly midnight. I sat on the couch in the dark, lights off, waiting. She came home around 12:45. The door creaked open, and she stood in the hallway for a long time, like she was afraid to step inside. Jason. Her voice was soft, shaking a little. Can we talk? I didn't answer. She came into the living room slowly, her heels clicking on the floor. She wasn't wearing the ring I gave her. That detail gutted me in a way I didn't expect. It wasn't what it looked like, she said quickly. Tyler was drunk. He got a little too comfortable and I was trying to. Don't, I said quietly. Don't lie. Not tonight. I'm not lying, she said, sitting across from me. You have to believe me, Jason. I didn't. I laughed, low and bitter. Believe you? I've done nothing but believe you for months. She looked like she might cry, but the tears didn't come. It wasn't serious, she said, her voice trembling. It was just, it got complicated. He's been helping me with some projects and we got close. But it's not what you think. It was just a stupid, emotional thing. An emotional thing, I repeated. So that's what we call cheating now? Her eyes darted away. You don't understand. I've been lonely. I cut in. Neglected? I've heard that one before. You want to know what I've been doing these last 6 months? Emily? Working late nights, weekends, covering extra accounts so you could have your studio. Your dream. That's not fair. No, I said, standing up. It's not. Silence stretched between us. The kind that hums. The kind that fills every corner of the room. Finally, she whispered, I didn't mean to hurt you. You did anyway. She looked down at her lap, twisting her hands. What are you going to do? I picked up the ring I'd dropped on the table earlier. Turned it in my fingers, studying the groove where it used to fit. I don't know yet, I said. But I can't pretend anymore. That night, I slept on the couch. The smell of her perfume lingered in the air, faint and cruel. In the darkness, I thought about all the years we'd built together. The road trips, the birthdays, the lazy Sundays, and realized that every memory now had a shadow. Every good thing had an echo of her betrayal. I didn't know if I could forgive her, but I knew I could never unsee that moment at the bar. That was the night our marriage stopped being a partnership and started being evidence. I woke up on the couch the next morning with a stiff neck and the dull ache of too little sleep. The house was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. Emily hadn't come downstairs yet, but I could hear her pacing in the bedroom above me. The rhythm was uneven. A few steps, pause, a drawer sliding open, another pause, like she was trying to decide whether to pack a bag or face me again. When she finally came down, she looked like she'd aged overnight. Her hair was pulled back loosely, her eyes swollen. She held a mug of coffee like it might anchor her. I didn't speak. I just watched her cross the kitchen, her movements slow, careful, like she was walking through a minefield. Jason, she started quietly. About last night. I looked up from my phone but didn't say anything. I didn't want you to find out like that, she said. I wanted to tell you. I was going to tell you. Were you? I asked, voice flat. Before or after the next dinner? She flinched. It wasn't what it looked like. Emily, I said, if I hear that sentence one more time, I might actually start laughing. She set her mug down and rubbed her forehead. I'm sorry. I know how it looked, okay? But you caught me off guard. I didn't even know you were home. That's the point, I said. You didn't know because I wasn't supposed to see it. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The air between us felt heavy, thick with the things we'd both avoided saying for months. Then I stood up, walked to the counter, and pulled open the drawer where I'd stashed the printouts. The tablet had synced automatically to our cloud account weeks ago, back when I'd been trying to back up her photos. I didn't mean to look through her files. I just stumbled across them. The messages were there, archived conversations she probably thought were deleted. When I dropped the folder on the table, she stared at it like it might explode. What's that? Proof, I said simply. She hesitated, then reached for it, flipping through the pages. The first few were harmless enough, work messages, meeting reminders. But as she turned the pages, the tone shifted. Compliments, flirty jokes, then things more int***, mate. Lines that didn't belong between coworkers. Phrases that sounded like confessions whispered at midnight instead of typed on a company chat. Her face drained of color. "I saved them," I said quietly, "because I needed to know I wasn't crazy." She tried to speak, but her voice caught. "Jason, it's not like that." "It's exactly like that," I said. "You said you were working late on the 12th. He wrote, 'Wish you could have stayed longer.' The same night our car's GPS had you parked at a hotel." Her eyes filled with tears, but they didn't fall. "We didn't. It wasn't." "Stop," I said, holding up a hand. "Don't lie. Not anymore. I'm tired." She sank into the chair opposite me, staring at the papers like they might rearrange themselves into something innocent. "I didn't plan for this," she whispered. "It just happened." "That's the excuse," I said. "It always just happens. Right? Like tripping into someone's arms." "I was lonely," she said, almost pleading now. "You were distant. You stopped talking to me." "Stopped?" I cut her off. "Emily, I was working. For you. For us. I was trying to build something while you were tearing it apart." Her lips trembled. "You don't understand." "Then help me," I said, leaning forward. "Explain it to me. Explain how a wedding ring becomes invisible. How you walk into a hotel with someone and still tell yourself you're a good person." Tears finally spilled down her cheeks. "It wasn't like that," she said again, weakly, but the words had lost all meaning. "I didn't think." "No," I said. "You didn't think. You just decided I wouldn't find out." She pressed her palms against her forehead and started to cry harder. Those silent sobs that look rehearsed. I didn't move. I didn't reach out. Not this time. I'd done enough comforting for both of us over the years. This was her storm to sit in. After a while, she looked up, eyes red. "Are you leaving me?" I took a long breath before answering. "I don't know yet." She nodded slowly, like she'd expected that. "Can we try to fix this, please?" "Fix what?" I asked. "The lies? The images burned into my head? Or the part where you chose someone else again and again?" "I made a mistake," she whispered. "A horrible mistake." I almost laughed. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. You made choices." I stood up, went to the counter, and grabbed another folder. One I'd printed from the bank records that morning. "Here's the timeline," I said, setting it next to the messages. 3 hotel charges. All on nights you said you were at the office. 1 under your name, 2 under your maiden name. Her hands shook as she flipped through them. How did you?" "It doesn't matter," I said. "What matters is that I know. And now you don't get to rewrite it." She stared down at the pages, lips pressed together so tightly they turned white. "You went through my things? You went through our marriage," I said evenly. "I just looked at the wreckage." That broke her composure. She started crying again, her voice cracking. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Jason. I swear I didn't. It was supposed to be nothing." I leaned back, exhaustion washing over me. "Then why keep doing it?" She didn't answer. That silence was the confirmation I didn't want but needed. For a while, I just sat there, staring at the counter where we used to eat dinner together, her side of the table still faintly marked by coffee stains. I thought about all the nights I'd sat there alone, waiting for her, defending her excuses in my head. Every single one of those nights was a lie I'd told myself. When she finally spoke again, her voice was small. "What happens now?" I looked at her for a long time. "Now? I don't yell. I don't throw things. I just start over." She blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I'm not giving you another chance to explain this away. You already used them all." She opened her mouth, but I didn't give her the space to respond. I walked past her, grabbed my jacket, and stood by the door. "You can stay here tonight," I said quietly. "I'll be in the guest room." She nodded, wiping at her tears, though I could tell she didn't fully understand what had just shifted. When I closed the door behind me, I stood there for a long time in the dark hallway, the silence pressing on me from every side. I felt hollow, not angry, not heartbroken, just Empty. Like someone had scraped the inside of me clean and left nothing but echoes. For the first time in years, I realized I didn't trust the person sleeping under the same roof. And maybe I never would again. We didn't separate. Not officially. Not immediately. After everything. After the hotel receipts, the synced messages, the silence that screamed louder than any fight, we both stayed in the house. I slept in the guest room. She stayed in the master. It wasn't some planned arrangement. We just coexisted. For the first few days, there were no raised voices. No dramatic speeches. Just quiet. A dense, unnatural kind of quiet, the kind that feels like being stuck in a room with someone holding their breath. She still made coffee every morning. She'd leave a mug on the counter for me, like she always had. But now it felt like a PR move, a performance. I'd take the mug, drink half, then pour the rest out when she wasn't looking. At night, I'd hear her moving around upstairs, closet doors opening, bathroom cabinets shutting. Once, I passed by the bedroom on my way to get a charger and heard her crying. But I didn't stop. I didn't check on her. Couldn't. I was trying not to be cruel, but I also couldn't offer comfort to someone who had detonated my trust and was now standing in the ashes wondering why it smelled like smoke. She started leaving me notes. Not long letters, just small things. Picked up your favorite granola. Let me know if you want me to make dinner tonight. Hope your meeting went well. I didn't respond. I didn't throw them out either. I kept them. I don't know why. Maybe I was collecting evidence of her guilt, her regret. Or maybe part of me needed proof that she was still here, even if the woman I married wasn't. We didn't talk about Tyler. Not once. His name hung in the air like a fog, so thick and poisonous we both pretended it wasn't there. But every time her phone buzzed, I noticed. Every time she left the house without saying where she was going, I noticed. And every time she came back looking tired and showered and freshly changed, I noticed. I wasn't paranoid anymore. I was aware. I started keeping track of things. Not because I was building a case, but because I needed something to focus on. I opened a new notebook and began documenting when she left, when she returned, how she looked. I wrote down every time she made an effort. Notes, meals, gestures, and how they felt more like stage directions than love. It felt like living in a museum replica of our marriage. Same furniture, same routines, but none of it was real. After a week of walking on emotional shards, I called someone I hadn't talked to in years. My old college roommate, Alex. We'd lost touch after graduation, but I remembered he'd gone into law enforcement. Last I'd heard, he was working as a PI. I found his number in an old email chain and texted him. Hey, I need confirmation. Nothing illegal. Just eyes and clarity. He called back the same day. Talk to me, he said. That was it. No judgment. No small talk. I told him everything. I didn't embellish. I didn't need to. The facts were ugly enough on their own. He was quiet for a second. Then, you sure you want this, man? Sometimes the truth's heavier than you think. I need it, I said. For my own sanity. Okay, he replied. Give me 2 weeks. We agreed on a flat rate. He'd follow her discreetly. Keep logs. Photos if necessary. No confrontations. No disruptions. Just the truth. Raw and clean. After I hung up, I sat in the guest room staring at the blue wall she'd painted last fall. I remember how excited she'd been about the color. It feels calm, she'd said, brushing it on in long, deliberate strokes. Now it looked artificial, like something from a brochure. I didn't tell her about Alex. There was no point. If she was still seeing him, she'd show her cards soon enough. If she wasn't, well, then at least I could exhale. The days blurred together. I went to work. I came home. She was always there, like clockwork. Dinner was sometimes made, sometimes not. If it was, she'd set a plate for me and then disappear into the bedroom, like we were roommates with bad timing. I usually tossed it. The food wasn't the problem, it was the intent behind it. She wasn't feeding me. She was trying to reset something without owning what broke it. On the 10th day, Alex texted me. Got something. Sending a file. You might want to sit down. The email came through at 6:17 p.m. right as I was pouring a glass of water. My hands went numb as I clicked it open. There were 6 photos. High-res. Time-stamped. No ambiguity. Emily standing outside a boutique hotel. Same one from the GPS ping weeks ago. She was wearing the black coat I bought her last Christmas. Tyler was beside her, holding a coffee. They weren't touching, but the body language was unmistakable. Familiar, comfortable, private. Second photo, her reaching for his arm as they walked in. Third, check-in desk. She was laughing at something. He had one hand in his pocket and the other flat on the counter. Fourth, elevator mirror selfie. Alex had cropped himself out, but you could see them in the reflection behind him. She was fixing her hair, and Tyler was standing just close enough to blur the line. Fifth, them entering a room. Together, her hand on the door, his behind her back. Sixth, them leaving the next morning. Same clothes, same smiles, like nothing was broken, like they hadn't wrecked a decade of my life. There was a text from Alex at the bottom. Check-in was under her maiden name. Room was booked for one night. Same checkout together. It wasn't a coincidence. I didn't respond. I just sat on the floor of the kitchen. My knees pulled up like I was trying to keep myself from falling apart. I don't know how long I stayed there. She came home around 7:30. I didn't say anything. I just watched her hang up her coat, slip off her shoes, and move through the kitchen like it was any other night. She opened the fridge. "You want dinner?" I was going to make pasta. "No," I said, more to myself than to her. She turned. "You okay?" I nodded. "Yeah, just not hungry." She stared at me for a second longer, then slowly backed away, like she sensed something was different but didn't want to poke it. Later that night, I printed the photos. All 6. I slipped them into an envelope and slid it under the stack of unread mail in the junk drawer. I didn't know when I'd use them. Maybe never. But I needed them nearby. Not for revenge. Not to hurt her. For proof. For closure. For me. She tried again the next morning. Left another note next to my coffee. "Have a good day. I'm sorry for everything. Please let me know if we can talk tonight." I folded it neatly and tucked it in the back of the envelope. She was sorry. Maybe. But sorry doesn't make you honest. Sorry doesn't book hotels under fake names. Sorry doesn't erase a second life lived in secret. So I smiled when I passed her in the hallway, said good morning, took my coffee, and left, because now I wasn't guessing anymore. I was done living inside the lie. On Jason's birthday, Emily threw a surprise party, decorations, cake, guests, the whole performance. She gave a speech calling Jason her anchor, but slipped in a line about people losing their roles in life. Everyone clapped. Jason stood up, left without a word. At home, he found her drawer half empty and a note. She'd gone to her sister's to find herself. Jason gathered the evidence, messages, photos, receipts, and sealed them in a folder. He added his ring and a note. "You chose him. I choose myself." He left it under her pillow. When he returned, she was gone. Keys on the table. She called twice. He didn't answer. On the porch that evening, he finally felt it. Not sadness, not relief, freedom.